All right, guys, welcome back to IK Tech Talk. Sorry about that. A couple of technical difficulties on our side. Nothing IK related. But if you're just tuning in now, this is Tech Talks. Every week we're going to be doing a different stream going over an IK Multimedia product. And to show our appreciation for you guys, we're going to be doing a giveaway at the end of each episode, so make sure to stay tuned to the very end. We're going to be asking a question. You guys get to tune in, let us know your opinion on something, and get a chance to win some great software. But this week, we're going to be going over Miroslav Philharmonik 2, and we're going to be going over how to get some real lifelike strings, quick and easy with the SampleTank 4 CS interface. It's a completely free interface to load all your Miro 2 sounds. And yeah, let's jump right in. Okay, so you can see I have a session here. I'm going to play this back for you guys so you can hear exactly what we're going to be going over. Also going to let a couple more people jump in here while we do. If you're just tuning in, we're going over Miroslav Philharmonik 2 today, and I'm going to be giving away a copy at the end of the episode, so stay tuned to win for a chance to win. Okay, so you can hear there's a couple of different things going on here. You can see my full SampleTank 4 instance here, and all of these are Miroslav Philharmonik 2 sounds. This is the additional concert harp, which we released just after we released Miroslav Philharmonik 2. These are all multi-instruments, and if you're not familiar with multi-instruments, I want to mention how cool those really are. One instrument has multiple articulations, and you can load them quick and easy with these keys. And you're going to see on the on-screen keyboard, they're actually they're graphically designed to show you where to press. And if you notice throughout my performance, I'm using different articulations to really mimic how a player would be changing through these and not just changing velocity. So let's go ahead and check out just this first violin patch here. I'm going to walk you through exactly what I did. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. If you're not familiar, SampleTank 4 is resizable. And you're going to see there's a couple notes. We have a C4, C2, and C0. So the C0 is telling my signal to have a sustain note. And that's going to give me some nice, long, drawn-out notes. And it's going to trigger these chords over here. And C2, C#2, and D2, if you notice, are all over here. And that's what's going to be changing these chords. So if you're not too big into music theory, or you're just getting started, this is an easy way to write some unique chord progressions. So check this out. C4 is going to be a downstroke, which you wouldn't really think to use on strings, but check it out. So you can see all I did was change this root note and use this downstroke to really give it a little bit of life. And on top of that, you're going to see there's a little bit of MIDI automation here. And that's one of the biggest things for me with strings is going to be the expression control. And if you're not familiar with that macro right there, I'm controlling it with MIDI CC12. Oops, sorry. Let's zoom out. And you can see what I wanted here. Let's go to the right track. Was to really give my attack more of like a bow type feel. So this is going to mimic the movement of the bow, and this is going to give me different peaks for different notes. I used a little bit of the same, but let's go ahead and adjust that so that way it gives it some more life. That's one of the coolest tricks, is use the expression like somebody would use the bow on the instrument. So go ahead, just watch the expression control move here. You can see it moves up to the top to give the most volume when I want it to really sustain. And I'm going to use that same function to make all of these strings kind of have a similar envelope and become as powerful as possible. So let's take a look at the next piece of strings that come in here. The violins, that first one was the violas. Sorry, I guess I have my naming a little funky here. But so let me show you how I routed this. If you look over to my right, this bass expression, so this actually is going to be a concert harp. All right, and what we're going to do is route out the track to Miroslav Philharmonik 2, which is the brain. I've used SampleTank 4, but I named it Miroslav because that's all I'm using. And I'm routing it to channel 1. So if you look over here, channel 1 is going to correlate to that track, right? So if we're looking here, this is actually going to be my harp. So you can see I've used the strummer again, but I've made it a little bit more of an articulated phrase, and I'm going to loop that. If you use Ableton, Control L to loop things is awesome. Select what you need, Control L. So let's take a look at that concert harp, and we're going to go to the strummer. And check out how I'm going to use these notes over here, the G4, A4, and B4. These are going to be the voicings of the guitar. And I'm kind of mimicking a plucking pattern with them. So check this out. And you can see I mimic some volume changes here. I always kind of like fading in and fading out to give it some life, some feel. You never want to have a static velocity. Ableton's really cool. When you write manual notes and you duplicate them, it gives you a little bit of variation. If you're just tuning in now, we're going to be giving away a copy of Miroslav Philharmonik 2 at the end of the episode, so make sure to stay tuned. That's all the sounds that we're going to be using for this video. And let's go ahead and jump into our next instrument. And if you missed that section earlier, let's check out how it's routed. So you can see my cello right here going to channel 2. Let's make sure that's actually a cello. So you can see all my parts here. That is a cello. It is going to be the sustain. And let's take a look at that MIDI note one more time. And here, let's go to the notes first. You can see I've given it a little bit of an off-the-grid touch. I'm rushing on some notes, falling back on some notes, just to give it some groove. And you can see the velocity moves a little bit with it. Not as much as the other strings, though. So I'm going to play back just those notes so you can hear that. So just a very basic chord progression to kind of give it some oomph behind those other strings that are on the higher end of the spectrum. And on top of that, what I decided to do, and this was kind of last minute, I wanted to show you guys how I wrote this out. This is going to be how I'm moving the bow for the cello. I want it to rise up to the peak of the note, and that's where I want it to be the loudest. And I want that loudest part of the note to be different for each different note that's being played. And you can see over here, it's going to give it a little bit of life. So let me play it without the expression. Let me copy that. So you can hear it still has some natural expression to it because it's recorded exactly how it would be, but listen to how it's altered a little bit. Now that rise to me is one of the most crucial things to make a string sound real, and it's very important for a string not to sound fake because you're trying to make an orchestral sound here as opposed to something synthesized, and that can happen if something's too static. So let's go and look at this next piece, our violas, which is going to be our lead since it's on the higher end of the spectrum. And let's solo that guy. And he's on the strummer one more time, which you notice if you're writing all of these pieces in the same key and you're not varying too many chords, which I didn't here, I'm using the same chord set, which makes it really easy to just write a couple of different parts that go together. You can always save it as a preset. And my favorite part is that you can lock it when you're picking sounds. So you can pick a strummer pattern and switch through any instrument of your choice and kind of really get the most out of it. So let's go ahead and play that, and I'll show you exactly what's going on. You saw I moved some notes because I've manually pushed these off time, and you want to find the amount of millisecond delay that a real human would add to each note, and it gives it more of a feel and a vibe. You can see my velocities do change quite a bit over here, and this is just going up and down the strings as if it was a guitar. And this picks the chord. So it's super easy to write this little piece. You can always go even more in depth. And let's see, did I add any automation? I did not. So let's go ahead. And I know my first macro is going to be on 12. So let's play that one more time. And you see, as I get higher, the volume gets higher, and as I get lower, the volume gets lower. That's how expression kind of helps move around the volume without controlling the total volume, and it gives it that expression. So I'm just going to do some basic. I want it to come up to a point around halfway through the bar and kind of just flow in and out. And this isn't going to be perfect. As you can see with the other ones, I've gone a little bit more in depth, but let's just copy and paste this and see how this sounds and make some alterations from there. So you can't hear too much there. So let's go ahead and do, as I was saying before, and let's really go in there and add some flavor to it. So as you can see, I'm just going to manually draw these in. And one thing I've really found is halfway through the note, if you leave a little bit like that, gives it a little bit. So let's try that one more time. And let's go over even more. And you want to really mimic how the bow's going to change the volume of the instrument. So let's just copy and paste that real quick. I'm going to add a little bit of variation to kind of give it some oomph. And you can see it's not perfect. Neither would a real performance. And of course, you can fine tune all of this. I'm just doing this on the fly to show you how I did the other notes. So you see very slight variation there. And I'm copying and pasting, and that's the worst thing you can do. You really want to go in there and dial in everything that you can to make the most realistic performance. Well, let's just go ahead and play that and just show you guys how it sounds. And you can see it gets a little stagnant once that's gone. Now, I want to perfect this, so I'm going to come back to this later. But let's go ahead and we'll just move on to the next step. So essentially what I've done, and if you're tuning in now, we're going to be giving away a free copy of Miroslav Philharmonik 2 at the end of the episode. This is being used inside SampleTank 4 CS, which is a completely free program for all IK users. It comes with 4 gigabytes of sounds. Definitely grab it now if you're looking for something to get started with some productions. What we've done here is we have 4 MIDI tracks, and we're routing them all to Miroslav Philharmonik using only one instance of a brain. And I've routed my harp to channel 1, which is where this instrument is loaded, cello, channel 2, violin, channel 3, and violas on channel 4. And you see volume is stagnant and panning is stagnant. For now, we're going to go over that a little bit after we route the audio. So you have MIDI coming in here, it's going to the proper channel, and you can route one MIDI channel to multiple instruments. You can route multiple MIDI files to one instrument if you want to really kind of go in depth. I know that's really cool when you're using the ensemble instruments. In this one, I've used all single instruments, but the ensembles are really cool when you're writing chords. They act a little bit more realistically. They sound a little bit more natural how it would. So go ahead, and I'm going to route this audio from the mixer page out to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10. If you look over here, I've routed from Miroslav to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10. And unlike in the last video, I'm showing this in real time. You're hearing all the sounds that are being created from SampleTank 4 and Miroslav Philharmonik 2. And I'm routing the input monitoring right here. You can also press the record arm option if you wanted to record this signal. But now my audio is coming in, and I can mix it, and I can really perfect the sounds that are going through and the audience is hearing. So let's check out this harp. And you can hear how the different levels are adjusted once you see them, and that the left and the right is altered just slightly. There are a bunch of great charts out there. If you're not familiar with concert seating, you want to put the violins in a specific spot, cellos in a specific spot. Of course, there's no wrong way to really do this. It's all person to person, and really audio, if it sounds good, it sounds good. I won't be too pushy there, but definitely check out some charts. I like to stick to the classics. If you're just getting started scoring, Miroslav Philharmonik 2 has a bunch of great multis, full orchestral live with timpani. We have harps, string quartet, woodwind ensembles, and this is going to load multiple instruments. So these are instruments here for each channel, and this multi is going to load an entire strip with all their effects, their MIDI routings, everything right, volumes, panning. So that's a good place to start if you're not too familiar. Okay, I see a couple different users use different DAWs. And one important thing is that all of this kind of works the same. Every single DAW is going to have an input and output section. For MIDI tracks, we're routing the input-output section from the MIDI track into Miroslav. And then for audio tracks, we're taking the audio from the plugin here. This is the track with Miroslav Philharmonik 2 on it, or SampleTank 4CS. And then from there, we're picking the channel that the plugin is sending out. So these are only available because Miroslav told the DAW that these are here. It's going to be the same in Sonar, Reaper, FL Studio, all those. Each DAW has a unique way to do this, but they're all pretty similar. Let's go ahead, and I want to show you guys some of the effects I used here. And it gets a little tricky when you're soloing MIDI in Ableton. So I'm going to solo all of my MIDI. And then I'm just going to solo that harp. And I want to show you guys the effects that I applied. And if you notice, I've been using sunset sound in almost every one of these videos. And that's not because I'm trying to push this. It's because it sounds that good. And there's so many ways to use it. I'm going to go ahead and play absolutely no effects. And you can hear the dry sound. Sorry about that. If you're not familiar with SampleTank 4, the mixer page does have auxiliary sends, very similar to Pro Tools. Any DAW that you use, here we have return tracks for Ableton. I did not use those. That's where that tape echo was coming from. I'm going to mute that for now, just so you can hear that completely dry harp sound. Sorry. Let's go ahead. Okay, so you can hear pretty dry. Let's go ahead and just put that sunset sound on it. And what I've done for each one of these instruments is if I want it to be farther away in the mix, I have less dry and more wet. And that's very important. It gives it a sense of space because as things move farther away, you're going to get less direct signal and more of the wet room tone, right? So I'm using chamber from Studio 2 to give it a really big sound. I've messed with the decay a little bit here. Just to make it not so in your face, really long decay. This kind of fits the track. And I've got low pass filter on it, which is going to cut out some of the signal that's going to muddy my direct signal, right? So this is just going to give me the best possible backup for my harp sound. So let's go ahead and play that. So you can hear there's a really big difference. Now, I personally love the fact that it's got its own space, and I've added an EQ here just so this particular instrument doesn't interfere with my other frequency bands. I don't want it to roll off into the cellos. I don't really want to hear the harp underneath 78 hertz. I rolled off some of the top end so it doesn't get in the way of the viola or the violins, and I've kind of used these curves on all these other tracks, and you're going to see how. So let's go to our cello. All right, so let's go ahead and play it completely dry first. And no equalizer. All right, sorry about that. Just if you use Ableton, if you're trying to route audio and MIDI this way, make sure you play the MIDI track and the audio track, and that's why I have them both soloed here. So let's go ahead. Now let's play it with some reverb. Okay, so you can really hear how that's going to give it some more dimension, some more stereo width, and a little bit more flavor. I've got the decay all the way up here. I want it to kind of ring out a little bit, and I've rolled off some of the high frequencies to make sure it doesn't get in the way of the actual dry signal. And you notice I have the dry and wet set very similar to the harp, but this is going to be a very present instrument. Let's go ahead and move to something like these violins. And actually, while I have it, go ahead and look at that curve right here. Let's see what frequency, 323 and 2K. You can see 323 is where my cello is really going to kind of shine, and I wanted to pull that out of the harp, and I wanted to have the cello shine there, right? So this is going to be for another instrument to make more room, and that's kind of what I've done with my mixing process, is kind of equalize and add a little bit of reverb. Some would say a lot of bit of reverb. Let's go ahead and move to the violins. And I've got the same chain here. You're going to see it's a pretty common theme. I have none of the effects on from Miroslav Philharmonik 2, but there are some great effects in there. You don't need these to get started by any means. If you're just tuning in now, make sure to like and subscribe. We're going to be giving away Miroslav Philharmonik 2 at the end of this episode. We're using it with SampleTank 4 CS, completely free, 4 gigabytes of sound in my products. For all IK users. So let's go ahead and play that violin sound completely dry. You can see it's a little bit it's just missing something. So let's go ahead and play that again with the reverb. Right, so that gives it a little bit of life. I've rolled back the dry signal. As you can see, this is also rolled back a little bit because I want it to sit in the mix in a certain spot. I've rolled up the wet and moved it to the left to give it some more space and kind of not interfere with my harp sound, which is going to be around the same frequency range. You see the 3.9K right there. Let's go ahead and poke over here. You see I don't have that boosted here. It's all about making space for all your other instruments. 994, you can see that's around where this guy lies. So I kind of took out a little bit there. So let's go to the next instrument. Turn those back on before I forget. And these are our violas. And let's grab that track. You can see I have a couple of things here. I wanted to give a little bit of dynamics. And some people might say, some people like lighter compression, some people like more. I'm not going to focus too much on the compression. I really want to show you the reverb is the sound that I like. If you use Ableton, I just group the tracks Control-G, and I'm going to just mute all of the effects. So you can see they're a little bit low, and that's what the white 2A is doing. It's not supposed to add too much volume. That's not what I wanted to do. But let's go ahead and check that out with the Sunset Sound Studio Reverb before I add the EQ. So you can hear it definitely gives it some space. Again, I've rolled this off. If you're not too familiar with reverbs, you don't really want them to interfere with the frequencies of the dry signal, so that's why I'm rolling this off. I want the lows. I don't really want the highs. The violas live in the highs, and I don't want to drown them out. All of these use the chamber sound for the strings, and I've rolled off the decay a little bit. Make sure your decay fits for the sound that you're using. If you want it to be short staccato note, I would use a shorter decay. A long drawn out note, I'd probably use a longer decay, give it more of a vibe to it. You can see this is the most EQ'd instrument, and that's because it's going to live right next to all of these other instruments, and I didn't want it to overlap. There is some masking going on up here where the two sounds meet, but remember that. Always leave space for all your instruments. Subtractive EQ is more important than additive EQ. Really, if you need a certain element in a sound, it should be there when you've recorded it. EQ for me is just to cut some frequencies out that I don't like. Then sometimes I'll compress if I need to control the dynamics. And then from there, I've heard of people using post EQ as well. And then whatever other effects you wanted to use on that particular track. It's music, nothing set in stone. You don't always have to do anything. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to play that track one more time for those who missed it earlier. We're about to do a giveaway for Miroslav Philharmonik 2. I'm going to be asking a question once this track completes. So get ready by your keyboards. If you don't have an IK Multimedia account, make sure to create one now. You're going to need that to win the giveaway. So I'm going to play that while you guys make your account, and I'll let my mod get ready for this giveaway. All right, guys, it is time to give away a free copy of Miroslav Philharmonik 2. If you're just tuning in now, this is Tech Talks. We're going to be doing this every week at 4 p.m. On YouTube Live. And let's go ahead. My mod is ready. Remember, if you don't have an IK Multimedia account, create one now. All right, guys. So the question we're asking today is, what method or tools do you use to get lifelike strings? You can mention a method from this video or something that you use uniquely outside something that we may never have heard of. So go ahead and shoot your answer into the chat box. If you already have Miroslav Philharmonik 2, please don't participate today's giveaway. Also, if you have Total Studio 2 Max, don't participate, please. But you can tune in next week for another great giveaway. We'll let you guys get a bunch of answers in here before we pick somebody. I have my mod on the lookout. And for those, if you don't win today, don't worry. We have a couple of promotions going on. Don't all jump at once, guys. Make sure this is a free copy of Miroslav Philharmonik 2. Just for watching and answering this one quick question. Mention something that you use to make lifelike strings. It could be a reverb chain. It could be expression control. I'm not going to give you all the answers, but go ahead and shoot an answer into the chat and let us know, what do you guys use? Reverb, EQ, and doubling. Doubling is a good tool. Personally, if you do write two tracks that are going to be in the same note range, I've found that if you move the notes millisecond delays and change the velocities of them, you can kind of avoid the accordion effect that can sometimes happen with orchestral type of plugins. MIDI tweaking is 100% for any virtual instrument. That's the way. If you guys are familiar with Moto Drum or Moto Bass, we have some tech talks on those. They have some great control features that will really help you write the MIDI and go really in depth. All right, guys, I'm going to shoot the question one more time, give a couple more people the chance to chime in. For a chance to win Miroslav Philharmonik 2, completely free, answer in the chat one of the tools that you use to create lifelike strings. Also, if you guys don't win, don't worry. We have a bunch of great promotions going on, all in analog, up to 60% off on analog modeled titles like AT Max, T-Rex Max, Hammond B3X, Syntronic, and more. Go to the IK Multimedia website, link in the description. We have the Total Studio Spectacular just extended, 75% off on Total Studio 2 Max. Miroslav's included there with a bunch of other great sounds worth checking out. We have the May the 4th promotion going on, which is two iconic synthesizers for SampleTank 4. That's $19.99. On top of that, we have a new Moto Drum hot deal, 50% off Moto Drum. If you're looking for a new drummer during the quarantine, I know that's definitely a big thing. For those of us who live in apartments, it's not always the easiest to have a live drummer. So when you have good sounds for, say, a virtual or an electronic kit, it really does make the difference. Oh, wow. You use Amplitude with an electric guitar to record tracks. Oh, that's not an orchestral tip, but awesome. Great. No, I use Amplitude on a bunch of other things other than just guitar. Recently, I've been using it on synths. You can make a really cool stereo rig with chorus, delays, all the different effects. It's really cool. Couple more promotions. If you checked out our UnoSynth masterclass, we're still doing buy an UnoSynth or Uno drum and you get Syntronic completely free. If you buy both an Uno drum and UnoSynth, then you get Syntronic Deluxe for free. So buy one synth and you get a world of them. It's a great deal. And if you're looking for studio monitors or a new audio interface, we have 23% off of Axe.io and iLoud micro monitors, also iLoud MTMs. Check the IK website link in the description for all of our different promotions. See what's in your area. We've been trying to give back to you guys as much as possible. We know being stuck at home isn't always the funnest thing to do. We've been trying to power through and get all your guys' orders out. If you did enjoy the stream today, I did route my audio from my Axe.io on one computer to this computer that I'm broadcasting from with an iRig stream. Simple connection, sounds great. Goes to Mac PC or iOS and Android. I don't stream too much from iOS, but if you do and you want to get some great sound, super easy, plug it in and go. I see a pretty good question in here. What is the white channel an emulation of? Aha. If you guys are big users of our stuff and you haven't checked out the custom shop, make sure to do so. It's going to give you descriptions of what everything is based off of. It's a really, really useful tool if you're looking for a specific sound. Let me pull up the custom shop here and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So you can see my screen. And you can see it gives you a nice big description of exactly what we modeled. Vintage tube compressor. Definitely a great tool if you're looking for something specific. Great for, I know guitar and bass guys are super particular about their brands, what's modeled, what year and all that. There's some extra info there. All right. Cool. So I'll let you guys, this is going to be the final countdown. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. Whatever you guys do to make Lifelike strings, throw it in the chat. We're going to give away a copy of Miroslav Philharmonik 2. If you're just checking out now, watch the full video. We went over using SampleTank 4CS to load Miroslav Philharmonik 2 sounds. SampleTank 4CS is a completely free instrument, 4 gigabytes of sound. If you already have SampleTank, it's still bonus sounds for you. Great thing to check out. And if you liked any of the modules that I showed in the actual program to mix a little bit, you can try them out in the custom shop. We have a whole FAQ on trials. If you guys want to see anything specific for the next videos, shoot your comments in the box and we'll see what we can do. The more votes we get, the more likely we are to make a certain video. All right. Cool. So it looks like everybody's pretty much in here. All right. So let's go ahead and do this giveaway. Free copy of Miroslav Philharmonik 2. If you guys didn't win today, stay tuned for next week. We're going to be giving away something else that's based on the actual talk of the day. We also do live streams on Instagram daily, 4 p.m. usually, but we also do them scattered. We've been giving away hardware, software. So tune in, especially if you like our stuff and you want to get started. Free is always the best price. All right, so let's go ahead. My mod has picked a winner. So, Beat Bazaar Studio, you are the winner of Miroslav Philharmonik 2. Go ahead and shoot us your IK username in the chat. Congratulations. You now have a world of strings in your hand. All recorded virtuoso musicians. Really epic sounds. I could sit here for days and talk about them. You can see I made this performance with just 4 strings, and it really didn't take too long. Using the strummer, life is just so easy. Check out this video or my SampleTank 4 tech talk. That's a really good one on explaining, how to route MIDI, the audio, and all that good stuff. All right, so I'm gonna let the username get in the box. We're gonna wrap it up here. Nice. I see a couple of you guys mention a couple of great products. Billy Cobham drums are sick. Those are some of my favorite drums. I love the blues feel to them. The Neil Peart sound. That's got to be my second choice there. Oh, another good question. Sorry, my mod's pouring them in here. I'm a little bit delayed, if you haven't noticed. Is there an advantage of using Miroslav Philharmonik 2 or SampleTank 4 CS? Sound-wise, not necessarily. Miroslav 2 will sound just as good as SampleTank 4 CS, but SampleTank 4 CS for me has the strummer, the arpeggiator, the phraser. It has all these different tools that you can really use to dial in a perfect sound, especially if you're not too familiar with music theory or anything like that. Definitely go with SampleTank 4 CS if you're just getting started with it. If you use Miroslav Philharmonik 2, don't worry, you're not missing out on anything. It's a great interface. It makes things a little bit simple. Personally, I like to keep it all under the SampleTank 4 CS wing. Keeps me up to date. If you're using SampleTank 4 CS, you also get this awesome layering page, which makes it easy to use one controller and write an entire orchestra. This will be the velocity range for each instrument, so you can limit a note to trigger or not to trigger between these velocities and these notes. You also have this tool, which is going to be the launch tool, which is when the notes are going to be played. They can be quantized to 16th notes, to the beat, or the bar, which is really cool, especially if you're using something like the strummer. You'll see the trigger there. You can go super lifelike with now. I like to keep it on beat or 16th, maybe bar, depending on if it's a loop. And you'll see there is a latch function here too. So if you're looking for the most features and control, SampleTank 4 all the way. And there's also some other great effects. I didn't use too many effects from SampleTank 4 CS today, but you do get them all with the interface. So any sounds that you load in, you get them. All right, well, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for all of our other live streams. I have a bunch of links in the description to point you guys in the right spots. Definitely stay tuned for next week's episode, and thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Jocks. And CS stands for Custom Shop. All right, there's Beat Bazaar's username. CS means Custom Shop, and that means most of the gear can be found in the Custom Shop, and it's a free thing that you can expand upon. You can use Amplitude 4 CS, which is free with any of the gear from the Custom Shop. T-Rax 5 CS, you can use it with any of the gear from the Custom Shop. If you have older versions, Amplitude 3, T-Rax 3, you can load all those sounds into the newest version since it's Custom Shop related. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for tuning in, and keep making some music. Hope you guys are staying safe and healthy.